I should have dearly loved to have a husband and children. But if that was not to be, I want no one to grieve for me. I was happiest in the sky. Think of me there and remember me.
When she was 5 years old, Cornelia Fort heard her father take her older brothers aside and make them all swear that they would never, ever fly an airplane. Apparently, it didn't cross his mind to give Cornelia that same oath to take. Who would ever thought that a 5-year-old girl would even want to grow up and fly an airplane anyway? But she did. This video is Cornelia Fort's story. Now, the voice you're going to be hearing here is not Cornelia's. However, every word spoken, she either wrote or she spoke herself. Cornelia was born into Nashville, Tennessee aristocracy, one of the wealthiest and most influential families in the entire state of Tennessee. It was a life that didn't always sit very well with Cornelia. While attending some of the finest schools in the country, Cornelia began secretly taking flying lessons without her father's permission or even his knowledge. In June 1940, 3 months after his death, she earned her pilot license, took off on a 2,000-mile celebration flight, and never looked back. She was 21 years old at the time. In less than a year, she had qualified as a flight instructor, and she was beginning to teach government courses in flying in the state of Colorado.
I'm flying off the side of the Rocky Mountains, where the air is tricky and vicious. One learns plenty.
Within a few years, she would become a pilot for the United States Army and fly as a woman auxiliary ferrying squadron pilot, a forerunner of the Women's Wasp program. But now, in the fall of 1941, she was on her way to teach flying at the Andrews Flying Service in Honolulu, Hawaii.
I knew I was going to join the Women's Auxiliary Ferrying Squadron before the organization was a reality, before it had a name, before it was anything but a radical idea in the minds of a few men who believed that women could fly airplanes. But I never knew it so surely as I did in Honolulu on December 7th, 1941.
At dawn, Sunday, December 7th, 1941, Cornelia left her apartment across from the Royal Hawaiian Hotel and drove to John Rogers Field for just another day of takeoff and landing practice. Just after 6:30, up in the air, in one of the company's airplanes, an interstate cadet, with her was a student at the controls and flying for another one of those touch-and-go landings. And then something happened.
Coming in just before the last landing, I looked casually around and saw a military plane coming directly toward me. I jerked the controls away from my student and jammed the throttle wide open to pull above the oncoming plane. He passed so close under us that our windows rattled violently, and I looked down to see what kind of plane it was. The painted red balls on the tops of the wings shone brightly in the sun. I looked again with complete and utter disbelief. I looked quickly at Pearl Harbor, and my spine tingled when I saw billowing black smoke. Still, I thought it might be some kind of coincidence or maneuvers. It must be. Surely, dear God. Then I looked way up and saw the formations of silver bombers riding in. Something detached itself from an airplane and came glistening down. My eyes followed it down, down, and even with knowledge pounding in my mind, my heart turned convulsively when the bomb exploded in the middle of the harbor. I knew the air was not the place for my little baby airplane, and I set about landing as quickly as ever I could. A few seconds later, a shadow passed over me, and simultaneously bullets spattered all around me.
Now, it was a dash for the relative safety of the ground. A shadow passed over them, with a burst of bullets spattering around and into the body of their airplane.
Suddenly, that little wedge of sky above Hickam Field and Pearl Harbor was the busiest, fullest piece of sky I ever saw. I grabbed the control from my student and headed down to the airport. The student asked if it was time for him finally fly solo. "Not today, brother," I said. "Not today." On the ground, my airplane was riddled with bullet holes from the strafing attack. The rest of December 7th has been described by too many and too much detail for me to reiterate.
In less than 2 years, Cornelia had amassed over 900 hours of certified flying time. But now the military had banned all civilian flights in Hawaii. Cornelia was effectively grounded.
I remained on the island until 3 months later, when I returned by convoy to the United States. When I returned, the only way I could fly at all was to instruct civilian pilot training programs. Weeks passed. Then, out of the blue, came a telegram from the War Department announcing the organization of the WAFs and the order to report within 24 hours.
Although Cornelia's mother tried to support her daughter and her need to fly, she never really liked it. When she asked Cornelia if she really felt that she had to do this kind of flying, this ferrying of airplanes here and there, Cornelia said yes, she had to.
It's something so deep inside of me, a need so vital to my happiness as sunshine and sleep. I want more than I ever wanted anything in my life to be really good, to be a scientific pilot and command respect from all comers in aviation, but even more important for my own satisfaction.
In September 1942, with her training over, Cornelia began ferrying airplanes to military bases where they would be loaded onto ships and perhaps sent overseas to areas where the battles were still raging in the Pacific and in Europe.
We had to deliver the goods or else there wouldn't ever be another chance for women pilots in any part of the service. We had no hopes of replacing men pilots, but we can each release a man to combat overseas. For all the girls in the WAFs, I think the most concrete moment of happiness came at our first review. Suddenly, and for the first time, we felt a part of something larger. Because of our uniforms, which we had earned, we were marching with the men, marching with all the freedom-loving people in the world.
To her mother and other family members who were worried about Cornelia, she told them she had absolutely no fear at all.
I, for one, am profoundly grateful that my one talent, my only knowledge, flying, happens to be of use to my country when it is needed. That's all the luck I ever hope to have.
In the spring of 1943, barely a month after Cornelia's 24th birthday, she and 6 male Army pilots took off from Long Beach, California, to deliver BT-13 airplanes to Love Field in Dallas, Texas. On March 21st, after refueling at Midland, Texas, Cornelia agreed to try flying in formation with the men, something she had never done before, and something that was forbidden to women pilots working for the government. Flying at 140 miles an hour, one of the men's landing gears suddenly struck Cornelia's left wing. The tip of her wing broke off, and 6 feet of its front edge was just ripped away. Cornelia immediately veered right into a series of spinning rolls that ended in a high-speed inverted vertical dive straight into the ground. Apparently, Cornelia never was able to regain control. Even the emergency hatch release on the plane's canopy had never been unlocked. It remained locked, even on the ground. The Air Force report found that marks outlining the wings were very distinct on the ground, and the engine was buried approximately 2 feet into that ground and had not moved after it hit. Cornelia? Cornelia, of course, was horribly mutilated. Her remains came home to Nashville by train, and she was buried in the family plot. Cornelia was the first member of the WAFs, the Women's Auxiliary Ferrying Squadron Pilots, to fall. And she was the first woman pilot to die while on active duty, while flying for her country.
I should have dearly loved to have a husband and children, but if that was not to be, I want no one to grieve for me. I was happiest in the sky. Think of me there and remember me.
Thank you for watching. This has been another in our series, Sacrifice for Country. Please subscribe and give us a thumbs up if you would. We'd really appreciate it. Have a great day and an even better tomorrow. Take care. Bye.